Hello, my name is Deanna Lindsay, and I was focusing on improving reading comprehension on my ninth grade freshman for my data action plan. So I started off looking at the test scores from my data display um, assignment. So you can see here, overall, testing is not the best. And so I was curious over the first semester, like what questions were they most frequently missing? So I looked at the four different types of questions that we tend to ask in our world geography test. Some of them are application based, so using um, content knowledge from class and applying them to the question. Memory recall, so just basically using the knowledge that we have discovered and applying that to these questions. Stimulus, using some sort of graphic image, chart, graph, and then having questions based off that. And then lastly, reading comprehension. So, reading comprehension is basically looking at a text and then having the students answer questions based off the text. So, an example would be this passage that we put on our final exam. So, using this text, you will have to answer questions 28 through 30. You can see two of the questions to the right, so 28 and 29. So, again, this is having the students read through these passages, pulling out the main idea from the passages, and then kind of answering questions based off not only the passage, but just a little bit of content knowledge as well. So, if we were going to focus on comprehension, there's this quote that I came across: effective instruction vocabulary strategies, such as providing definitional and contextual information about each word's meaning, and actively involving students in word learning through talking about, comparing, analyzing, and using target words. So, basically, it's saying that in order to improve reading comprehension, you have to really go straight to the vocab and incorporating that into everyday um, content. So there are many different strategies that you can use to kind of improve reading comprehension. One was focusing on explicit vocabulary usage. Basically, at the beginning of each class, focusing on the key vocabulary and definition for the day. So much of the readings that you will see on a unit exam will be based off of a topic that was covered throughout the unit. It won't be a reading that they already read, but it'll have like some of the similar characteristics, definitely similar vocabulary as well. So just having the students practice that um, daily, looking at different vocab and making sure they understand the definitions would be very, very important. So it would have a higher impact because they would be responsible for kind of staying up to date with the different vocabulary and feasibility. It would be very easy to incorporate this in everyday lessons. Vocabulary quizzes over the daily key vocabulary once a unit, probably mid unit is what I was thinking, would have high impact because students would be responsible for going over this vocabulary, practicing the vocabulary, and feasibility. It would take maybe half a class period one day throughout the unit. So very easy to incorporate that as well. Reading as a whole class, pulling out main ideas and writing summaries of readings. Medium impact because it would be easy for students to hide while someone like me, the teacher, is reading the assignments. They could just be acting like they're following along. They might not fully grasp the concepts. So That would be medium impact. And feasibility, there's a lot of readings that the students do read, some of them long, 3 to 4 pages. And if that's 2 or 3 nights a week, that would take up a lot of class time, and it would be harder to make sure students are learning full content. Working groups with different readings and completing reading checks. Feasibility, medium, also is just same as the earlier one, but they would just be working in groups. Impact is low because it is if students decide that they want to just divide and conquer, and each of them pick out maybe one question from the reading check and only look for the answer to that question, it would definitely not get the impact that it needed of working on comprehension. Implementation indicators for this is figure 4. So this is how could you implement some of those strategies. I picked the first two strategies since they both had high impact and high feasibility. So projecting daily vocabulary for students at the beginning of class would be very, very easy for teachers to do, and just starting the class that way. They would also need to create a digital dictionary for all the terms with their definition that the students can access whenever they need to. Move throughout room to monitor students recording key vocabulary at the beginning of the period. So just holding the students accountable for making sure they're getting these important vocabulary definitions down. Creating vocabulary activities students can do to practice understanding the terms. So not just doing it in the first few minutes of class, but actively having them work on it for homework. And then create mid-unit quizzes students will take as a basically a formative assessment before the summative assessment on the unit tests. Students will write down the key vocabulary for each day. Students will complete the vocabulary practice activities, and students will take the mid-unit vocabulary quiz. Classrooms, I think it would be very beneficial for the classrooms to have maybe posters going with each unit of the important key vocabulary that is being brought up in those units, so the students can constantly kind of be surrounded by those terms and practice those terms. Student work demonstrates mastery of vocabulary acquisition throughout the unit. That kind of speaks for itself. Action plan. So, the learner centered problem is students are struggling with correctly answering reading comprehension questions. Problem of practice. As teachers, we do not spend a lot of time on vocabulary acquisition once we get to that high school level. So, maybe spending a little bit more time on that vocabulary will help with reading comprehension since they'll be kind of used to some of these terms. These tasks very straightforward. So, first one, finding the literacy coach to help make content specific posters for the classrooms and come in to speak to the students. I think it would be important for Stephen Fleming to come in to see my freshmen just so they can get used to maybe him coming in and doing different activities focusing on reading. Um, and if he could make posters of vocab that maybe he could have in his room, we could have in the different social studies rooms. So it's all the freshman world geography students kind of are seeing the same posters and words. That would be great. And that would be very helpful to do the first week of school, just so the posters will be ready for every unit, or maybe even have it up throughout the entire year. Secondly, make digital dictionary students can reference throughout the year for different vocabulary terms. Just having a running dictionary would be very, very helpful. Um, the different geography teachers could just easily get on top of that. Again, working with the literacy coach, making vocabulary activities the students can work on throughout the units. So, seeing maybe what they do and what the literacy coach recommends for the students to be working on. Making mid-unit quizzes that all ninth graders will take throughout each unit. So again, it's important that the teachers kind of stay on top of these quizzes so the students can master these terms. And that's just going to be ongoing throughout the semester. And lastly, continue with the reinforcement of vocabulary, especially learn first semester that they might see again second semester. So just know that it's not going away. And if there isn't new vocabulary that is for the specific second semester, then definitely just reinforcing what they've already learned. Evaluation. The best way to evaluate if reading comprehension is improving would be to look at those reading comprehension questions off of the um, exams that they'll be taking second semester. So, like, again, going back to those frequently missed questions, seeing if the reading comprehension questions, frequently missed questions, have been going down compared to the application, memory recall, and stimulus. So, again, not just doing it first semester, but like seeing if there's an overall improvement second semester would be great.